Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creation Entertainment Podcast. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and on today's episode, our co-CEO, Adam Malin, sits down with soap opera expert Michael Fairman to talk about the iconic series General Hospital. You are going to love it. Do not miss it. Then, in the next segment, Mr. Gary Berman, our other co-CEO, is back for a Gary Berman on Business segment. It's tons of fun. We're so happy you're here. Everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. And if you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the Creation Entertainment Podcast.
Michael Fairman, it's so great to see you. Welcome to the Creation Entertainment Pop Culture Cinema Squad.
Well, the Pop Culture Cinema Squad is such a great title. I was like, of course, I have to do this.
So let me just set this up for our viewers. This could also have been one of my interviews, but I figured because your knowledge sets are so huge, we'll make it a Cinema Squad segment. Michael Fairman, for our viewers that don't know him already, he's an entertainer and an incredible talent and creative, but he's also a world-class expert on soap opera history and continuity in general, and also served as the host and moderator of the official General Hospital conventions that Creation ran for about 6 years in Los Angeles. We're not doing them anymore, and I greatly regret that because I love the show. But Michael, what a pleasure to see you again and welcome you onto the show.
So good to see you. You and I had a lot of fun doing the GH. We pulled our hair out a lot, but we had a lot of fun.
We had a great time, and you proved continually with grace under pressure. You know, what a wonderful conversant you are, moderator, host. So we're so grateful to you for all that. And, I've watched General Hospital myself religiously for, I want to say about 10, 12 years now. And, and I'm a real continuity guy. So I really know the continuity a lot. And I wanted to do a deep dive on General Hospital for the podcast because actually quite a few creation attendees watch GH regularly, but we've never done a deep dive on it. And I figured I might as well get the world-renowned expert to talk me through this.
All right. Well, I hope I can talk you through it.
I know, and particularly since GH continuity is 65, 66 years deep, I don't expect you to have that kind of coverage, but I thought before we talk about the Frank Valentini era and the current continuity, which is what this is really going to be about, just touch on a few things such as the legacy history of General Hospital. So, Michael, can you just kind of give us the broad strokes of the creators of the show, when it first came about, any kind of history of the show in general that can kind of get us into the whole genre of it?
Well, GH turned 62 years old April 1st of this year. So it's been on for 62 years.
Yeah.
And it was April 1st, 1963 was when it debuted on ABC. It was created by Frank and Doris Hersley, were the creators of the show. And originally, it all took place at the seventh floor nurses hub, and it was in black and white. And John Berardino and Emily McLaughlin and Rachel Ames and Roy Thinnis were all part of this core group at the beginning of the show. And, you know, they lost their kind of stride. There was like a big dip in audience. In the 70s, and they needed to do something to stay on the air. And that is when Gloria Monty was brought in and literally revitalized the soap genre as we know it today.
What were Gloria's credentials that they decided to bring her on?
She had done a lot of other television series, and they knew she was like a real taskmaster, like somebody that could take the reins. I mean, she suffered no fools. I mean, the stars will tell you that are still there that she was hardcore.
Right.
And I think a lot of like the soap dish and the movies when they play like that tough executive producer, sometimes is modeled after Gloria Monty. They always kind of model it like she'll tell you to F off and she'll like be harsh and tell you like it is. But, it was really interesting. And I'm sure it was very sad to know. I mean, literally in the space of months, we lost Leslie Charleson, who played Monica. And then we lost Denise Alexander, who played Dr. Leslie Weber. And, when they brought Denise Alexander over, um, in the mid to late 70s, it really changed the face. They made her the star of the show for a while. This is pre-Gene Francis. And it was her storyline that actually started the ratings going back up. And Gloria kind of that's when she started all of it with Jeannie and then eventually bringing Tony Geary into the show and Jackie Zeman and all of these changes she made and really somehow tapped into pop culture. I mean, that's when it was like a pop culture phenomenon back in 81, I think it was, when 33 million, I don't know if I have that figure right, but it was millions and millions of people watching Luke and Laura's wedding in 1981.
I
And
mean,
that was Gloria Monty.
it was an incredible cultural touchstone, and of course, we know Jeannie and love her. Um, can you just sort of give us some historical context to that kind of point in time leading up to Luke and Laura's wedding and sort of the fallout from that?
Well, the character of Laura Vining was not originally played by Jeannie. She was not the first actress to play the role. But it turned out that she was adopted by the Vinings, and it turned out that Leslie Weber was her actual biological mother and was given away. Like, you know how they do the switch at birth or given away at birth story.
Many
So, that happens every day.
times.
So, that was kind of the story. And then Jeannie came on as Laura in more the teenage Laura, and that is when there was the murder of David Hamilton, which was complicated, and Leslie was covering for a young Laura, and then there was Rick, Leslie, Monica, and then eventually Laura, a young Laura, met Scotty Baldwin. So Ken Schreiner as Scott was Laura's first love interest.
And was that when Ken first came on the show?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
little bit after he first came on the show.
I love Ken.
I love Ken.
Yeah.
He's one of the most wonderful people that I've ever met from that show.
Even though Scotty comes off as very kind of surly, he does have a soft, loving side, but has this kind of surly quality, which we love about him.
He's definitely surly, and it's funny. Ken's a little bit like that, but much soft, but a softie at heart.
Yeah.
And he was very close with Laura, and of course, very, very close with Jackie Zeman, because at that point they had brought Jackie over from One Life to Live, where she played Lana McLean, and they brought her over to be Bobby. And I remember Ken Schreiner saying when she got out of the limousine, there was this red-haired bombshell, and he was just, "Oh my God, who's this?" And uh, they really brought the ratings up before Luke entered
And,
this.
and Jackie, I mean, a beautiful woman up until the day that she died. Her untimely death was pretty recently, and I think we were all shocked by Jackie's passing and the loss of Bobby as a character.
It was terrible. I mean, it happened very fast, her real life death, and not a lot of people knew about it.
Yeah,
And I know you and I touched upon it at the last GH convention we
yeah,
did. She had just passed away.
yeah.
But she's so iconic. I think she was on for 45 years on the show. She had celebrated her 45th
Crazy.
anniversary.
Yeah.
And, that's the General Hospital that a lot of the diehard people, pop culture people know. They know Scotty, Bobby, Luke, and Laura,
So
right?
talk to me a little bit about Tony Geary.
When Tony Geary came on the show, I don't know they expected it to go the way it did. He had done some other work on Young and the Restless. He had done primetime work. But here was a very unique actor with a very unique presence. And when he came onto the show, and he had worked with Gloria before. That was the thing. She knew of his work.
Right.
So when he came onto the show, people were just noticing that this bad guy, he was a bad guy with the rough edges, but was kind of good at heart. And they ended up, and then there was a whole controversial, was the Luke and Laura's campus disco situation a rape or what? Which has still been controversial to this day, which they've tiptoed around. Because I
People,
think,
everybody has their own opinion about it.
right. And I think, because of the day and age we live in, it's a much different time where that
Yeah,
probably never would have flown
yeah.
now. But he became iconic. He was a one-of-a-kind performer. There was no one that looked like him. There was no one that acted like him. I mean, you knew that this was like an incredible presence and talent. I mean, he could do anything. And I think they struck gold with him. And then obviously the Luke and Laura going on the run and all of that just started this. And then um, the Ice Princess story and all of these things that came out of it were what made General Hospital so pop culture and so iconic through the early 80s.
The Ice Princess thread came back fairly recently, and Luke was purportedly killed on a one of those Switzerland trams.
Right.
And I always wondered whether or not that actually did happen, or have they set up an opening for Tony to possibly come back. I'm told that Tony just refuses to come back to the show, but we're all, fans are all hoping beyond hope that maybe they left that, you never saw him die. They left that open so that possibly he could come back in the future if he ever changes his mind.
Absolutely. I don't think if you wrote it that way and we did not see him die on screen, and
Yeah,
even if we saw him die on screen on a soap opera, it doesn't really mean much
right.
anymore. I think they left it open. Do I think he would come back? I don't know. I feel like the more time goes on, I don't know what would bring him back.
Right.
And they've kind of he doesn't have, unless he came back for Tracy.
The window may have closed on that just in terms of continuity, but it was still enticing. Talk a little bit about the writing, the writing teams for GH over the years. Can you give us some historical context?
That has been a challenge. I think writing is the toughest job in soaps, just by the enormity and the amount of the pace and not having burnout by it. One of the things I would say, Elizabeth Cordy has been a constant with the writing team over whatever regime is there. I know she's the co-head writer right now, but
Yeah.
she's been like the continuity of the show for like 30 some years. So she's always been there. Um, there was the Bob Guza era, which was, very popular for the mob and how he brought the mob into the show. Now, some people didn't like that because they're like, I'm not watching General Hospital, but is this, but he was responsible for the godfatherness of Sonny and everything we have today, mob related.
I mean, I always loved it.
I did too. I did too. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, I did too. And I think
It was Bob.
it was Bob.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Bob should get some credit here for all of that.
Kind of
And
a wise guy sort of dude.
right.
Kind of
Yeah,
kind of like Nicholas Pileggi, that sort of a writer, you know what I'm saying?
definitely. And like the Sonny Brenda, Sonny, like all that stuff really was under Bob. And I think people were shocked because it's like, wait, this isn't General Hospital. Where's the hospital? All we see is guns and mobsters. And I
Uh,
remember
uh,
that.
there's room for all that. Now, how does the writing staff work? How do they stratify? What's the writer's room like on GH? Is there a writer's room or?
Well, I think I think there's virtual writers' rooms, right? Because nobody lives in the same place. That we all live all over the place.
Yeah, yeah,
The way it's structured on most daytime shows are you have your head writers who map out the long-term story.
yeah.
Then you have your breakdown writers who are taking specific episodes and like, here's what we're going to tell in here. Here's the breakdown of what's on here. And the breakdown writer gives it to the script writer, and the script writer is the one who writes the dialogue. So that's kind of the process of most all soap opera writers room. Right now, Chris Van Etten, who came back after being let go, is back as the co-head writer with Elizabeth Cordy. So that's your main long-term story. And then they break it. I know Ryan Kwan from Days of Our Lives is now over there as a breakdown writer, as a writer too.
Right.
So that's kind of how it works, and it's a lot of work.
I think that GH fans will agree. I mean, I suppose soap fans, but definitely GH fans will agree that the legendary General Hospital time bombs, as I call them, the bombshells, the time bombs that are embedded into story continuities only to explode a month later, a year later, 3 years later, are one of the most delicious, fantastic ingredients in General Hospital are those time bombs. And we love them. So let's just talk a little bit about those. Um, as we start to talk through the current continuity, we'll talk about the current time bombs. But can you tell us some of the legendary time bombs
Oh my
from
God,
the
there's
past?
so many.
There are so many, but give us some of your favorites.
Well, there was going back, you remember Luke and Laura got married and Scotty was on and all this Scotty was supposed to be dead and Scotty showed up at the wedding and then Luke and Scotty got in a fist fight on the yacht and Helena Cassadine showed up in the form of Elizabeth Taylor, so there was she put a curse on them. Those were great. I'll never forget, I think one of the best still is Sonny Dante when he shoots his own son.
Yeah,
That was
not knowing who
not
Dante.
knowing who Dante was.
Yeah,
And then, of course, Olivia, you shot your own son. That was such a buildup, right, for months because Dante was hating this man. He wanted to lock him up. He wanted to, put him behind bars, only to find out that this was his father. I thought that was, and I was so happy about it, Adam. I was like, are they going to chicken out? And at least he shot him like he would normally. Sonny shot the guy
it
thinking,
was awesome. It was
yeah,
great. And don't you feel the echo resonance of that in the way that Dante was pissed off at Gio for what went down with Rocco's alcohol poisoning?
I hated that scene. Adam, I was so annoyed. I'm like, well, okay, Dante, this is like a little bit overreacting. You're like, yeah, don't you ever do like you never let the guy talk. It was so much
Like an echo, right?
echo.
Yeah, that's very, very intense. Give me one or two more of your favorites before the current continuity.
I loved, loved to this day when Brenda gets left at the altar in the rain and Sonny is in the car. And I'll never forget beautiful Vanessa Marcel, the rain coming down, and he goes, he always leaves me in the rain. And he's sitting in the limo. She's waiting for him at the altar. Jason comes in and says, he's not coming. And she's like literally stunned again that she got stood up by this guy who's sitting in the car, like outside the church. I
Right.
mean, and I had one of the most wonderful things I was very fortunate to get to do was the 55th anniversary tribute for the daytime Emmys for General Hospital. And
What an
I,
honor.
and I was so honored. And I want to tell you, and you know this from producing events, there was nothing harder than they said, so listen, you need to tell 55 years in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I went, what? So imagine culling through all that to then get it down. And I'm like, oh, we're leaving this out, we're leaving that out. And they're like, okay, we got to make cuts. And I remember Frank Valentini had a couple notes he wanted, like, could we make sure this person is in there? But it was just wonderful, to look at that history. It's on YouTube. I think it's on my YouTube channel.
Everybody should show, and
Yeah.
I'll mention it several times, but
It's
Michael
a
has
Michael
a
Fairman channel. Yeah.
Michael Fairman channel. He's got a fabulous channel, and you've got to watch it because he's got, 100 different fantastic segments, interviews, tons of information, and all of his insights. So go to the Michael Fairman channel as soon as you can.
Um, yeah, so those are some of them that I remember. What do you have one that you loved? Or
Well,
you're
we're going to talk about the current crop,
okay. All
and
right.
by the way, they're blowing off, on almost daily basis because they have so many. So it's great. Can you give us a little history of where the show filmed? Now, Sunset Gower? So what is the current studio and
ABC Prospect Studios.
Prospect Studio?
And they've been there for that I as long as I can remember. That's where they've been. Yeah.
Prospect so did it start there? Do you think
I
or
believe so. I know Grey's Anatomy tapes next door
right?
to General Hospital.
And then of course frequently they will shoot, hallways, stairways,
Stairwells are a big one, right? Everyone falls down the
stairs.
stairs.
Yeah. Yeah, like people, and then when people get thrown down the stairs, that's the stairs inside of Prospect. So we were very, very blessed to be able to bring attendees on tours of the Prospect Studios. Frank, let us bring fans in there. I mean, it was incredible with the wonderful senior producer M.K. Weir, who would conduct those tours. Those were really, really amazing. Um, uh, One thing that shocked me recently was the departure of Kelly Monaco. Sam had been a fixture on the show for so many years. Do you have any sort of insight into why that happened and the sort of the events leading up to it? Because it was, a shocker.
It is a shocker. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs. I know she was on the show for 21 years. I know the fans was complete outrage, as you saw. Like, why are you letting her go? I think at the time,
Did they
though,
let her go?
well, I think they made a decision to let her go.
I was not aware. I thought she just maybe wanted to leave after all this time. I didn't know the
I,
detail.
I, I don't know all the details. I do, and nothing's been ever publicly clarified. So I want to say that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is just, but what was interesting to me at the time was that um, her story, Sam's story, was very minuscule. I really felt like over the last year and a half leading up to her leaving, she really didn't have much to do. And I kind of was like, why is this like, are they not able to write for her? You know, they had her with Dante.
Which
Uh,
was great. I love that fact. I mean,
love that fact.
nice
Um,
family together.
yes, and I love Kelly. I mean, I've had a wonderful relationship with her over the years. I was very surprised. I just didn't feel they were writing for her. And I don't know the inside politics of it all. I know Kelly had mentioned in some of her tweets and things that there was a lot to still be told, that she has not told yet about what had happened. So I don't know. It was surprising.
She's sorely missed. General Hospital has many tropes and many traditions, but one of my favorite traditions of General Hospital is the nurses' ball.
Absolutely.
Give us some historical context on how that came about, because it's a beloved fixture. We see it once a year for a few days, and shit always shakes down when it
Shit
happens.
happens at the nurses' ball, which has nothing to do with the ball.
That's
So,
right.
um, so 1994, you know, the AIDS pandemic was horrible, and in the storyline, they had Robin and Stone, and Stone died of AIDS, and Robin became HIV positive, and that was kind of the way they segued into it. And then they
What's
had,
that?
yeah, and then they had Lucy Lynn Herring as the
A
like
great Lynn Herring,
the great Lynn Herring.
Lucy, who could never seem to keep her clothes on.
But she told me in my new interview with her that she feels that's why it didn't happen this year, that they feel like she's kind of aged out of like losing her clothes, like she's smarter now. But
Still
it
looks
was,
stunning.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's beyond beautiful. I said to her, she were talking about dresses. We were talking about like how do you choose the dresses? And she goes, I said, because
Best
Lynn,
choose her dresses.
so but I said, Lynn, does anything not fit? Like you have the perfect body. She's like, well, thank you. And then she explained to me that Sean Reeves, the costume designer, brings in a rack of clothes. They try them on. She tries them on. The two decide together which ones will um, stay and which ones will go. And sometimes she doesn't like them, and sometimes she does. But in the end, she really likes them.
I think most of our viewers that would be watching this would know that Lucy always wants to be the center of attention. She always gets into trouble with her mouth. She's just an intoxicating character. Lynn is so fantastic. And the Nurses Ball has become an important tradition. It's also a great showcase for the talents of the cast.
It's a great showcase because you're like, wait, they sing? I mean, when they have the people that sing, right?
Yeah.
It's always great to see them. And it's always interesting. Frank Valentini finds a way to somehow get, the rights to some of these songs that, he's very good at pop culture and like music. He's a very good at he has his pulse on contemporary music and he knows stuff like that. So it's always good to see what they end up coming up with. Some people think some of the ball's hammy, some people don't. We all love the spectacle of it all and the tongue in cheek of it all. And then of course this year was like Bombshell City, which was so perfect. I was like, oh, this, and everybody on my website wrote, this is the best nurses ball. And the reason is because you literally had the bombshells going off, right? Everywhere. So
Poor Gio smashing his violin. We're gonna talk about all that. Let's talk about the Frank Valentini era. He was a breath of fresh air for the show. He's such a consummate showrunner and a fantastic, lovely guy. I adore Frank. Give us some historical context about how Frank came in and some of the hallmarks of the Frank Valentini era.
well, Jill Farren Phelps was executive producing General Hospital, and Frank was over at One Life to Live, which I was my all-time favorite show.
Yeah.
And
What was Frank on that show?
I think he was on there. He was there for, I think it was 2000. He started very early as an assistant
Yeah.
and worked his way up. But by the time the show in its last many years, he was the executive producer, and it got canceled by ABC, and ABC brought him over to General Hospital.
Right.
Um,
What year was that?
I believe 2012 is when One Life to Live aired its final episode. So I
Frank
believe,
segued right over.
yeah, it was early 2012. And he segued right over, and he was over there. And you could tell at the time, a lot of times, then there was the whole Prospect Park issue, right? So there were actors that he brought over from One Life, like Michael Easton, Roger Howarth,
Right, right, right,
all of
right.
that. And then that kind of backfired because of the Prospect Park legal rights issue. And that's why there was so
What
many.
is that? Tell us about that.
Sure. So they had gotten the rights from ABC. By the time All My Children, One Life to Live were going off the air, Prospect Park was relaunching them online. So for a year after they had all failed, they went online on Hulu, and they built new studios in Stamford. They resurrected All My Children, One Life to Live. They had the rights to the characters. They had the rights to those shows and to
Right.
be able to do them.
So does that mean they had the rights to the likenesses of like
They,
Michael and
at
Roger?
that point, they had the intellectual property, all of that. But then it all fell apart, and they were only going to do it for one season and not continue.
Right.
So then eventually through a legal battle, all the rights of them got reverted back to ABC. So there were these years in between all of this happening that you would see, like Michael Easton was John McBain on General Hospital, and Roger was Todd Manning, right? And then that couldn't be done anymore. And then Kristen Alderson was Star Manning. So later she was Kiki Jerome, and Michael Easton was Silas before he became Finn. So there were all these changes.
And by the way, both Roger and Michael are beloved, incredible talents and actors. I mean, the loss of Finn as a character, I hated the way that his alcoholism was outed by Elizabeth. That was a whole thing. Always hoping that Finn, might come back at some point in the future, along with his darling daughter
Violet,
and the actress Jo.
Jophia Love. Yeah.
She is astounding force of nature. I've seen her on other shows, but I'm hoping that maybe their story arc will come back at some point in the future on the show. Uh,
I was just going to say one thing about Frank is that one of the things that Frank is known for is that he really knows how to work. Like, here's the budget, and he's able to work within the budget. And I think that's been a main reason for his success is that he knows how to like maneuver everything to keep it on track, to not like have this juggernaut of a show be so over budget. And I think that's one of the strengths he's brought to keeping the show on the air through very trying times with soap operas in general. They're not really growing their audience as soap opera. They're keeping their audience, or, every week to week losing or gaining.
Frank is amazing. The show, I still think it looks amazing, and it does all sorts of wonderful practical effects and pyro and lots of great stuff like that, which is always so much fun. One funny trope that happens every Thanksgiving is trying to get together for a good Thanksgiving meal, a Thanksgiving turkey. Will they ever get out of eating pizza, Michael?
No, they will never get out of eating pizza. Do we want them to get out of eating
Of
pizza?
course not. No, no.
No, I
That's
mean, it'd be really funny if somebody was like, not like didn't burn the turkey. Like if they really successfully did it one time. Now that Sasha's the cook, maybe they can try. I don't think it'll happen.
I wanted to take a quick side note on the passing of the wonderful actor Johnny Wachter, who played Brando. Some of our viewers may know that it was tragically, he was murdered. Johnny was murdered when he caught thieves trying to steal, I believe, the catalytic converter out of his car. And the poor guy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And Brando is such a great character on the show, and Brando and Sasha, the relationship that they had was so amazing.
Oh, it was one of the most tragic things. And the sad thing about his death, not only that it was so random and horrible, is that he was the sweetest guy. Like, there's nobody that had a bad thing to say about him. He was the guy that would stand up for you. He was the hero guy, and we all loved him. He was wonderful. I had wonderful conversations with him, and I thought he was just a stand-up guy, and it's very, very sad. And I can't believe we're all this time has gone by since his passing.
Johnny hosted a day for us one year, didn't he?
So what happened was, and that's my greatest memory. Him and I, you had him host because Laura wasn't there. Laura Wright had a something had happened, and
Yes. Yes.
Johnny,
And by the way, Laura Wright, the patron saint of our show,
patron saint.
was sort of like the GH co-host of the show with you through thick and thin, and we love Laura. We adore her. But typically on a Friday, we would get somebody else, right?
Yeah, and I think she couldn't make it, and Johnny was there, and I think you must have talked to him and said, "Can you do this?" And and him and I were talking backstage. He goes, "I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing?" I said, so we'd go, I said, "Just go back and just," so we're like talking, and he's like, and then he went out there and he's perfect. He's like, everybody, like I
Yeah.
thought that was great. And that was those are the little memories I take with me of him that because of you, actually, that we were like backstage trying to figure it out with Johnny and a sweet man,
Yeah.
really sweet
Great
man.
Johnny Doctor. Okay, we're going to start to do a deep dive on some characters because there must be 60 or 70 of them, but some of the expected suspects, and we're going to talk about them, some of their current continuity, and we can genuflect, cast judgment always, because if you're an avowed people watcher like myself and my wife, we love to cast judgment on all that we see that parades before us. So it's always fun to do that. And so we might just as well start with the great Maurice Bernard, our beloved Sonny, who, by the way, was also gracious enough to come every year
Every year.
to the GH show. I mean, this is a guy that, easily could have just, said, I'm too big for this thing. But every year he's amazing. And also, of course, Maurice has his own podcast, which everybody should check out on YouTube, which is
State of
fantastic.
mind. Yeah.
Before we kind of talk about the current continuity, any sort of general remarks about Maurice? Interesting anecdotes?
Well, I think the interesting thing about Maurice, it's really interesting how he literally became this. I had talked to Scott Clifton recently, and I'm using this as an analogy. Scott was Dylan Quartermain in General Hospital years ago before he became Liam on Bold and Beautiful. And he said he had Tony Geary and Jane Elliott on one side of him, and Maurice Bernard on another, and they all had, Tony and Jane were like, go big, act big, and Maurice was like, everything's very contained right here, because Maurice is very that quiet intensity guy. And I think that's what he brings to it. And all the actors that have come onto that show, he's the guy, that they're like watching Maurice. Like, how does he do what he do? Because it's all very, right here. He's not a big explosive, but when he explodes, right? Um, well, he's one of the finest actors there's ever been in daytime, right? 3 daytime Emmys and one of the greatest of
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
time.
So in the current continuity, we've discovered that Sonny has a heart condition from a bullet wound in the past, and actually nearly died with Ava standing over him, happy to not provide him with his pills, which was
A throwback to Tracy Quartermain not helping Edward Quartermain. Yeah.
a vicious, yes, an echo and a vicious moment. I love Max Gale as Sonny's dad, Mike, and Mike appears to Sonny in it when Sonny is, heading towards the light. Mike comes in to tell him, no, you're not done with the world. I mean, how amazing was that?
It was really amazing because the minute those two are together, it's just so amazingly heart touching. It's just so touching. It's so beautiful. I mean, you just really feel like their father and son. And Maurice always said that Max reminds him of his own dad, and they are just amazing together. I think Max is also beyond a great actor. Um, you can't buy that. Like, that's real chemistry.
It's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
I adore Max. We all know that Sonny, everybody's favorite coffee importer and would-be mobster, although you don't know what illegal businesses Sonny is in, but we know it's not drugs. But whatever it is, they kind of keep it sort of nebulous. But he's got these docs, and now a new big bad has introduced himself to General Hospital by the name of Jens Sidwell, played by the great Carlo Rota, who we adore, and we've known Carlo's work for years. Um, let's kind of get a sense of Jens Sidwell. We first met him in Africa, Dirty Diamonds.
First of all, I can't believe he's even walking around. I mean, this guy's a bad man. And what I love on this show is they're like, well, we can't put him behind bars. We have no charges. We can't, so they can get him off of what he did.
Tried to kill Lucky, tried
Yeah,
to kill Jason. I mean, how is this guy even allowed to come? And of course, out of coincidence, it's got to be this location as they from
this location, this location, and of course, the worst police department run by Anna. It's just bad. I always just
Anna
I'm
can't
like,
seem to get
Anna,
anything done.
Anna, can you get anything right? And she's like, she looked, and Finola's like, I
Super
cannot get
spy.
anything right.
So we all know that clearly although they haven't said it on the show, he was the guy that firebombed Sonny's place. Poor Michael, opening up that whole arc kind of reminded me when Ava's whole disfigurement thing, but Michael, going off to Europe for that whole thing, and we're going to talk about but he probably is the one that's trying to assassinate Sonny, and there's been a couple of other attempts too, right?
Absolutely. That's what it seems like, unless we're all going to be stunned and it wasn't him to save the character. But I don't,
Why kill Sonny? Why does he have to kill him?
I don't know what his problem is.
I mean, he wants the docks. He wants to be muscle in Port Charles, but why does he have to kill Sonny to do that?
I don't know. I find the writing of his character kind of complex and confusing because I'm like, I get that he slithered in and he's now at Windermere and everyone's like on to him. Um, unless he was trying to send a message to Sonny, like I'm gonna blow everything up if you I don't know. It was I'm not quite sure on that one.
Well, I don't think all of it has been revealed at
I
this.
don't either. I think
One thing that we discovered is that Natalia is his ex-wife. I thought Sonny and Natalia were heading for a real serious relationship, and then when he found that out, he just kind of that was the end of him and Natalia.
Well, I know there's something going on this week. If you saw the preview, she had a DUI last week. She
Oh
got
yeah,
thrown in jail.
she went bad.
She went bad. I think she's bad. I think it's not going to work. And I think many fans say to me, how can this woman be like on the show? She had two gay children and she treated them both like this. Like it's kind
Terrible.
of like a despicable character. And they don't really say like she's a despicable character. Now maybe they're leaning into that a little bit. I mean, she's a very questionable character. And I was shocked that when they brought in Adrian Anchondo to play Marco, I was like, wait, so she didn't acknowledge her son either? Like what? And
Terrible.
terrible.
Well, and of course, Marco has rejected Natalia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know where there's any
And then their daughter Blaze is off on tour somewhere and wants nothing to do with mom either.
correct.
Yeah.
So this is like a woman's been thrown out by her own children. She's, obviously being black, she's still being blackmailed by Jen Sidwell, I thought.
Yeah.
And uh, I don't know where there is for her to go. And my thinking is, I don't know if Eva LaRue is going to be on much. I don't know where they're going with her, or they're making her totally bad.
Now, by the way, Blaze and Christina were such an item, and it's important to have good lesbian relationship role models on the show. The show is wonderful with its LGBTQ representation, and we love that. We support that. So when Christina kind of went cold on Blaze, which kind of sent Blaze off on the tour because, I mean, um, well, Christina is a basket case. We're gonna get all onto her, but I hated to see the character of Blaze leave the continuity because she was so great, but also alienated by Natalia.
Well, I thought that's another case like you're seeing with Jonathan Jackson, what's happening. I mean, they wrapped up um her run, Blaze, very quickly, and I thought it all happened quickly. Like she came in, she told her to go. Um, Christina told her to go because she couldn't get over losing her baby and just was kind of a little bit weird. Um, and that was that. I don't know if she's coming back at all or anything.
She's a great character on the show. I'm hoping she will
But
come back.
I don't see there, I do not see Christina and Blaze all of a sudden getting back.
Well, Christina's a nut job. We're going to get to her. But if you're going to talk about Sonny as yin, then you have to talk about his yang, his on again, off again love, the great Laura Wright, Carly. Any opening remarks about
Well, my
Laura?
opening remarks is, I what's really touching, and I thought it really played well, and I had written about this, is when Carly was with Sonny while he was recuperating or when he's going through the heart surgery. She was
Yes,
there with him, right?
at his side.
On his side. And she even was by his side. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, aren't we all, it's as the end of the day, Sonny and Carly are the ride and die, and at some point they're going to come back together.
Right. Although, I mean, we think that she's, right now seems to be pretty happy with Brennan, WSB's Brennan. But
How's that going to work when she finds out that her daughter's been secretly
I
working for
know.
Brennan and it's shot? No one's even talking, Adam. No one's even talking about that Jocelyn killed Cyrus Renault. It's never been talked about again. Where's the body? Like the whole thing.
Jocelyn's recruitment into a WSB agent is pretty hysterical, but we adore Eden
Oh,
McCoy.
I love
If
Eden.
anybody's up for the job, I guess it is Joss. I'm just saying it's a funny turn of events. Um, Laura is kind of like the resident conscious of the show and also really loves to get into everybody's business. And in Michael's absentia, we're going to talk all about the horrible Willow Drew thing, how Drew became such a bad guy, but in Michael being burnt and in his absence, Drew and Willow just kind of were going pell-mell, trying to grab the kids for custody and planning to move to Washington, all this stuff, acting out. And Carly is the de facto uh, sort of representative for Michael in his absence,
Yes. And she's in everyone's business and she'll step up and do anything for her kids. And
including get that court date set.
get the court date moved up,
That's
and
right.
then all of a sudden he comes back. Yeah, I mean, and then there is the Nina Carly relationship, which is constantly, which, the minute they like put them kind of on the same side, they blow it up immediately because you've got to have them at each other for the rest of eternity on this show.
Could never forgive Nina for the whole Sonny amnesia. I,
Cowboy Mike.
that was really fabulous, fabulous, fabulous time bomb waiting to blow off. But and again, talking about Carly, the issue that her daughter is working for Brennan, was recruited by him, is another fabulous Carly time bomb that's about to go. It's going to go off, and as you say, that's going to blow up her relationship with Brennan, which my wife and I are always looking at how the tangential actions of a time bomb will then lead to the regrouping of another relationship, and this, as you say, could bring Carly and Sonny back together.
I do. I don't know how long this Brennan can go on. I'm sure, they were hoping for a new romance for Carly. Maybe it'll get, who knows? Maybe she'll be marrying him and then all of a sudden she finds out that Jocelyn's in the W's. I don't know. Like,
Let's talk a little bit about the two actors that have played Jack Brennan, Chris McKenna versus Charles Major. Do you have any feelings about one over the other? Because I do.
yes. I think Charles Measure, when he came onto the show, uh, this was a very different kind of actor, a different presence on screen.
Yeah,
And he made the decision to leave the show.
which
And
really
then
sucks.
which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like quick again. Like a lot of these quick things seemed to be happening, and he decided to leave. And then they went through this casting and they chose Chris McKenna. And it's also interesting if you follow everything, right? Like you do, it's been very interesting in General Hospital that they'll do a casting, but then out of it, they got Daniel Cosgrove and Daniel Goddard. Everybody got parts from coming in to read for Brennan.
Yeah.
Um, Chris is a very different, you can't really compare them. They're just so different. It's like, I don't, it's very hard to compare them, right? It's so
I
different.
feel that Laura's chemistry with Charles was stronger than her chemistry with Chris.
I think it's more palpable on screen, like the chemistry with Charles, right?
Yeah.
Initially. But now, he's not there. So you're trying to build this chemistry. It's very, very wonky for the
Isn't
audience.
it funny when all of a sudden it's like, and then the role of yada yada will now be played by yada yada, and then the actor has to still act in exactly the same. The actor has to act in exactly the same way to the new actor. It's really kind of funny and bizarre.
But you can't. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you can't. There's so much of yourself as a person and an actor that's so different from anybody else.
Yeah.
And they always say when you try to replicate what somebody else did, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Uh, Speaking of change of actors, it was shocking when Chad Duell left the show as Michael. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, he was on there for almost 15 years, won a daytime Emmy. Um, what is being said is that he said, Chad, that he made the decision to leave the show and that the door was open. Um, and I do not know whether he truly believed he was coming back or this was, he stepped away. But, it was very interesting that the minute Rory Gibson, who replaced him, came onto the scene, the fans immediately, where in other times they're very resistant, were very welcoming towards him. Like
Rory is amazing.
Rory's amazing. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And it's a very different Michael, and it's a, you know, uh and he's really good, and he made a big impression right away. and people are excited to see him.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think it's the best of all worlds. If Chad had to leave, Rory really has just kind of come in. He's so sincere. He has instant magnetism with the characters and chemistry. Rory's quite remarkable. So a number of time bombs have come off. Most recently in court when poor Sasha got grilled by Rick, and sure enough, her illicit one night stand with Michael, which of course had to produce a baby, all comes out for the whole world to find out. How is that like one of the greatest time bomb?
One of the greatest and the best part is how many people do you know have like a baby on the courtroom floor?
So,
And,
oh,
and then
fantastic.
and then baby on the court floor, but then the woman who you hate, Willow, who happens to be a nurse, is delivering the baby, who's Michael is in a
Unbelievable.
again. It's like, and then they're all smiling at each other.
I know, and it's like and then of course now you've got
True.
Willow and Michael and Carly looking through the window at the baby, all almost like one unit again, and Drew in the back saying, "Oh shit."
I
So
know. I was so
clearly,
worried. I'm worried that I was first thinking, is he going to steal the baby? Like, what's he going to do? Like, are you going to take the baby? Because, is this Drew? Drew? Like, that's been the other thing, right? Is Drew really Drew or is Drew Shiloh?
that's so funny. The my God, Willow became, was such a beloved, and Kate McMullen, did I get her name right? Is
Caitlin McMullen.
Caitlin McMullen is so fabulous and had created such an almost a goody two shoes, her and the writers persona for the character that her vilification really is pretty fabulous and fantastic. Now everybody hates Willow, and I love that, but then in like one moment, helping Sasha deliver her baby, all sins are forgiven.
For that minute, because now they're back in court this week, as we'll see when the verdict is comes out this week of
Yeah,
who gets
the
the Amelia and Wiley custody case.
custody. Yeah,
What do you think, Adam? Do you think she'll get custody, Hill, or neither of them?
um, I'm not a good predictor of these things, but first of all, it seemed like, of course, that Michael should get custody because Willow and Drew, even though Rick tried to, then change the timeline a little or make the timeline, look like once the Sasha thing came out that but then once the Sasha thing did come out, that reduced the possibility that, Michael would get sole custody because that did kind of tarnish him. Although Rick wanted to make the timeline seem like that was even before, Drew and Willow. But I mean, Drew and Willow's kissing, I mean, if they
I
were,
thought Drew and Willow hit the floor in the nursery before Michael ran out and did. I thought that came out first.
uh,
So
they probably got together, before. And by the way, that's fairly egregious doing it in the nursery. I'm just saying.
I'm saying she loses points right there for the judge. She did it on the floor of the nursery
And
with
by the
Drew.
way, if they've got nanny cams hidden stuffed all around houses, you just better be careful how you behave in a
This
house.
is a lesson for all of you mothers of your nanny cams, where you put your nanny cams. Watch General Hospital. Don't let
Uh,
it happen to you.
so fantastic. So it's sort of a back and forth as to who's going to get custody, but I do think that Willow got a couple of points for helping to deliver the baby. So um,
Yeah, I'm thinking something weird's going to go down. And
and
I'm
so
wondering, yeah, and I'm wondering because now he has a baby with Sasha that everybody publicly knows about. Will you
uh,
have a child and then let her be the mother to the other? I don't know. Like,
well, Sasha was saying, "Oh, I want to raise the baby myself." And by the
that's
way,
not going to happen.
Jason is awesome for putting himself on the front lines, representing himself as Sasha's dad. I mean, everybody loves Jason. Steve is the best. But Michael probably lost points because of that. But now that even though Sasha said that she wants to raise the baby herself, I'm getting the feeling like Michael and Sasha are going to be back together as a thing, and they're going to raise the baby together. You get that vibe?
I'm getting that vibe, but I'm also getting the vibe that maybe Willow and Michael will somehow end up back together too.
That could happen
Down
also.
the line,
Well,
like I the way she looked at him and he looked at her, and and then Drew goes nuts, and I don't know,
we're
like,
going
right?
to talk about it, but when Willow finds out the laundry list of Drew's sins, there would be bribing the nurse in Europe to block Willow from seeing Michael. There would be, of course, that whole thing that happened with the prostitute. Admittedly, not entirely Drew's fault. That was another fabulous time bomb, by the way. The whole ketamine thing is fantastic.
And then they planted it on Jane
Yeah, on Jane Elliott, right? On Tracy, that's
Tracy.
pretty hysterical. But to get back to your question, it's hard to predict where the custody will come out, but I'm sure everybody will know before this is probably aired. And that segues into, of course, Steve Burton, whom I guess is like sort of most of the demographic that watches General Hospital. I think he's the one that they love the most, and Jason is the one that, although he's got a kind of a bad boy thing in a certain sense, he's the one. Who are you going to call? It's Jason. He's the guy that we rely on the most. To talk a little bit about the great Steve Burton.
Well, Steve is so great. I mean, first of all, it's really interesting to watch him. As he's admitted that he wasn't a good actor. He learned everything from Maurice mentored him years ago. Once they changed the character after the accident and his brain got scrambled and he became Jason Morgan, it gave a new life to the character.
Which was a funny, doofy plot line.
Goofy plot line. But he's everybody's strong, silent hero type. And even though he's been a henchman for Sonny, but what I've noticed on this time that he came back, they have kind of tamed that down a bit. And there's a lot of right in the eyes. Steve's great is with his eyes and just the tears and the emotion and being a father to his son Danny. I love all those scenes with them. And you're seeing just a different side of him, right? It's not
More,
just
he's more vulnerable.
that's it. He's more vulnerable, and I think that's great because if we come back every year and just see the same tough veneer with it needed to crack a little bit.
What is that nickname that they give him? Silent? What is it?
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold. Yeah. The Stone Cold veneer is pulling away a little bit to reveal a more complex, nuanced, loving Jason. And I love the character more than ever. I just think he's fantastic. Now, we've talked a little bit about how he stepped up for Sasha. Um, he and Sonny are finally talking about dismantling the business. How do you feel about that?
I think it's going to be really hard to watch as they age being this like Sonny and the henchman. I kind of like with all of us in life, right?
Yeah,
Do we move on when we become older, or do we stay in the same thing?
yeah.
Like, do they hand it off to somebody else and have other problems on the side? Like, I just, how many more years can we see them like running the town?
I've often asked myself the same question. Um, yeah,
I'm torn.
don't even know about them running the town. I know the five families and Selena and all of that kind of stuff, which they haven't touched on too much lately. But I've never really felt, that sense that Sonny in some way was controlling the city or even parasitizing off the city. I never got that kind of mafia vibe from Sonny. I think of him more as a philanthropist and a people loving kind of a guy. But I think it's fun that they're talking about dismantling the business. And of course, can you ever get out of a business like that?
Well, that's a good point too. I think once you're stuck in, you're in. So that's the other problem. But it'd be interesting to see them like take other jobs, but I don't know what they do.
Now, with Sam passing away, don't you think he really stepped up with Danny? Maybe a little late, but he's he's got to kind of really be there for the kid right now.
I mean, I think that's what really needs to see more of. I think they should have more of that, like really being the dad to this son.
Yeah,
He's not been much of a son to Jake. Jake isn't even on the cam. Like, I don't know where Jake is,
yeah,
but he has two sons,
yeah.
and it's great to see him in dad mode, I think. Um,
Fantastic.
so
And then we didn't really mention the fact that COVID, which thank God is in our rear view mirror, screwed everything up so much. Um, that he made the choice. He was an anti-vaxxer, and I respect his choice, his personal choice, but he couldn't. ABC, Disney kind of gave him the boot. He had to leave the show for several years. So that was intense, but it was so great when he came back, right?
well, Steve, one thing about Steve Burton is he's a very smart guy. He's a smart business guy. He's not going to alienate everybody. He made his decision,
Like certain
like
other,
certain
right. Yeah.
other people. So of course he left on, yes, he decided not to do it. He stepped away. It couldn't work out. And when it came over, he left Days of Our Lives and went back to GH after COVID. That was the way to play it, to go back.
And it's great that he is back. We're going to move on, but I did, just as a side note, want to mention that I do think that Jason and Spinelli are always, in my heart, as a great kind of a dynamic duo. Those two make a great pair together, and the two actors' chemistry is fantastic.
I think we don't see them enough together anymore on the show.
You know,
In real life, they have their own comedy tour and their own show, their own stuff.
yeah.
But yeah.
Let's talk about the great Jeannie Francis. Now, for some of our crossover viewers here, they know that she is married to Jonathan Frakes, who is the handsome and dapper Will Riker from Star Trek: The Next Generation, but also is an in-demand director in Hollywood who directs, a lot of television, did some movie directing, but directs a lot of television now. And so I've tangentially known Jeannie through Jonathan, whom I've known for 35 years. So I kind of knew Jeannie on the side, but Jeannie Francis is really one of the most, Laura is one of the most pivotal characters in GH. But I would argue that their storylines for her right now are not as strong as they could be.
Well, it is, and that's another thing. Is it her summer vacation? Is it this is amount of
Oh,
time?
yeah.
When
For our viewers that don't know, Jeannie and Jonathan go off to Maine every year for several months. So, how coincidental that Laura seems to disappear for months at a time, right, Michael?
she disappears for a month at a time, and with her, I was hoping she would be more in story with Lulu and Lucky while they were all there together, right? And then she hasn't been on that much, and
Yeah.
it's just it's hard. It's like they must have constraints with her in terms of availability, is what I think it is.
So they can't do that much continuity with her. Do you think she will be deposed as mayor?
If she wants to be on less, yes.
Um,
I,
of
I
course, this guy that they have running against her, he's like a total creep. Whatever his name is, what's his name?
Ezra Boyle,
Ezra Boyle. Yeah, what a creep.
creep. I think isn't I hopefully the point is that good wins here, and but if she wins, then there's no story to get her back in.
Yeah,
Or maybe that's the end of her mayorship.
right. Let's move on to the great Nancy Lee Grahn as Alexis. Nancy has this amazing way of showing Alexis squirm because her daughters are constantly putting her through angst. She's always stuck in the middle. Of course, first, recently they, well, they lost Sam, and then Christina lost her baby, and then Christina tried to kill Ava, but ended up putting Rick and Elizabeth in the hospital. And so now there's a murder cover up, and she's trying to cover that up. Why does Alexis always find herself in, she can't have any kind of an emotional peace?
Well, then it wouldn't be any good for Nancy Lee Grahn, and we need her like in this because she does it so well, right? Like
Oh, well.
this is what she does so well. Um, I am like, but Alexis that is such a strong woman, so it is really like she literally got suckered in by Ava and Rick on this bilking the money out of the Cassidy
Oh my
fortune, and
God.
that's what was like,
It's $10 million from the Cassadine estate. Did I get that number right?
yeah, basically, and then and then Christina finally finds out about it, and we can't tell Molly. It's like we're protecting Molly, and all this is going on. I'm like, ah,
Well, don't forget Rick is Molly's dad. So yeah, I
there's your bombshell. That's the big bombshell that has got to come out soon.
what a disaster. This whole embezzlement thing is fantastic. Is it,
I do want to say that, the Emmys are going to be in October, and we don't have the date or location set yet that Natus has announced. But I do remember last year, Nancy had some amazing scenes. So I do think she could be, depending on how this race goes, a real front runner because
yeah,
she had
absolutely.
tough.
It's sensational actress. Was it Laura that came to Alexis with these questions about the money coming out of the estate?
Yeah,
Because they're supposed to go to Ace, right? That's Ace's money.
Ace's money. So
But
it's,
but I'm just saying, don't you think that the Cassadine estate was chipping Ava out of divorce money that Ava should have gotten?
sure, but she's been so awful too. It's kind of
Yeah,
like
I know. But
reprehensible too. But yes,
did,
yes,
did wasn't part of her bad behavior acting out because she got gypped out of the Cassadine divorce settlement?
right. And so she can always say that's why I blackmailed her.
Another actress that I adore is Kirsten Storms. And Maxie is looking amazing lately. She's had a physical transformation and it's looking beautiful. And do you think that she and Spinelli will actually marry, or at least they're together finally?
I think that that would be great if they would do a Spinelli, a Spixie wedding, like a fun, sweet wedding eventually soon would be great. I mean, we've all wanted to see them back together, and it's kind of languishing. I think they should move it forward.
Right. However, Spinelli won't live if he calls her Maximista one more time. I'll kill him myself.
I cannot stand Spinelli's vernacular, and I don't know how Bradford remembers it, but that's a whole other thing.
And we love to hate his Spinelli's vernacular, and we love Bradford. And but even though we hate that, we love it at the same
Right?
time.
It's like, wait, are you not going to call her Maximista?
And then, of course, trying to keep Deception together. I mean, Deception is a huge, big success for Maxie and for her team there. And of course, Deception was partly kept afloat by Sonny, but then you also have Deception having to buy this zincite from Jen Sidwell, so he's got his octopus arms into it as well.
That's what was amazing, that we need Jen Sidwell to make Deception like be successful in their formula. It's like, well, that was smart because that kind of sticks them in to even more stuff in Port Charles.
I know, and that by the way, that zincite is actually ground up blood diamonds that he makes in Africa, probably.
Correct.
Okay, the great Jane Elliott, Tracy Quartermain, an amazing legacy character. Kind of give us some of the history of the great Tracy Quartermain.
Jane Elliott was already had done so, she's been on a lot of soap operas. She's come back to GH. I just remember when she first came on, and I mean, with David Lewis as Edward and Alan as Stuart Damon as her brother Alan, and she was just a real nasty, nasty sister, daughter. She was a spoiled brat, horrible, horrible. She
Hey,
was nasty.
she
There
can
was no
continue. She has continued to be nasty.
continue to be nasty, although just like Jason, they
Yes.
have softened her. So
Yeah.
in moments now, she's been able to layer it where she'll take a moment and calm it down, and you'll see it in her eyes, and you know, but there is no compare. She is one of a kind. She is, and everybody loves working with her. They tell me, the actors, like, it's very nerve-wracking when they first go in, not because of her, but they're just like, oh my God, it's Jane Elliott. I got to act with Jane Elliott.
Great, Jane
And
Elliott.
she does keep people on their toes for sure.
Uh, I thought the whole campaign by Drew to have the family mausoleum ripped out was pretty hysterical. Of the many egregious things that Drew has tried to do, trying to tear away a family where your family is buried is kind of really screwed up.
I And then wasn't there the camp out? Weren't they camping out? And
Yeah, yeah.
Emma?
Emma was camping out there. Yes, that's right.
Um, you know, I just want her and Drew to have a fist fight. I want her to take him out.
And she'll allow herself to be arrested and she'll diss the cops there at the precinct. It's like she doesn't care.
She doesn't care. I mean, I did love her scenes with Brooklyn and Dante when hell blew up, and she said, "This is your son. You guys need to get it together. Stop arguing." You know, so she had these moments of coming away from being just rancid.
We're near the end of our tether. What I think we're going to have to do is do a part two. Can you bear it?
I know, can you?
No, I would love to. I'm just
Of
saying,
course, yes, of course.
uh, there- we're both coming towards our hard outs. So I think that we should regroup and do a part two, and we'll take it up with the rest of the cast and continuity at that time.
All right, sounds
Well,
good.
Michael, it's an absolute pleasure and delight talking with you and delving into the rich history of General Hospital. You're such a wonderful expert. You're so beautifully outspoken and so generous to give your time to us on the show.
It was wonderful to see you again, Adam.
Yes.
Really great. So
All right.
great.
We'll reconvene as quickly as we can.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, viewers.
Hi, everybody. It is time for one of your favorite segments ever, Gary Berman on Business. Gary, how are you today? And what is today's topic?
I think this is a good one. Hi, Ryan. How are you? I wanted to discuss how, as you get older as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you really have to face the reality that you cannot keep up with everything that's going on currently, especially technology. So I wanted to ask you what your feeling is about AI and the use of it in business, particularly in artistic endeavors.
Okay. And for the record, I didn't know you were going to ask me about this. So this is just the first thing off the top of my head. First thing off the top of my head, and forgive me, this is something you said a year ago that I really appreciated because you were asked the question at a convention, what are you guys going to do about AI? And you said, and I'll always remember this, you said, hey, we had 3 people working full-time in our art department before AI, and we still currently have 3 people working full-time in the art department after AI. So first of all, I just want to point that out, that I think that's awesome. So even though AI has become a big thing, and it is not taking over an art department, it is a tool that the art department can use. But you are actually doing pretty well, I think, about evolving with the times. So what I think personally about AI is I know a lot of artists don't like it for good reason. Like this is their way of life. And obviously when AI is done, people have 17 fingers and weird stuff like that.
Yeah,
so they can
that's true.
easily criticize it and be like, look, why are you using this? Clearly this doesn't work. It's not good. But as you say, it is a tool. And beyond that, it's just like with every single technological advancement, there's no stopping it. You can work with it. You can guide it. You can have it help the people that are already working in that field, but I don't think there's any way to like fully stop it. That's my thinking on it.
Well, we got involved in this area, particularly when it comes to artwork, when with the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, because 1 year previously we had done the logo at some Star Trek event with AI, and it really didn't come out very good. But
San Francisco, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And rightfully so, people were commenting on it. So we tried to go back to mainly using, an artist to do stuff. And I think most of the representation at Star Trek Vegas last year and this coming year will be non-AI, but we're also trying to use it in a judicious way, because it really does allow for more art being present at the convention, because it produces it quickly with our artists guiding. I mean, a part of the feeling is if our art team is comfortable with what we're doing, then they're representing artists. But I also try to listen to other artists, and they're saying that AI is stealing from the artistic community. I don't know if that's still what they're saying or if it's valid, but that's obviously a good objection. But it's not only AI in the use of art; it's AI in the use of running a business. And there are definitely jobs that are going to be eliminated. So as a business owner, it's hard to make those decisions. To let someone go. We haven't had to face that yet, but it could come up. But if there are artists out there that have ideas for us, I mean, I'd love to hear them. One of the things we did is, Kavita's with us, the Star Trek is the artist, and her artwork is she's wonderful. So we get to use her artwork to design up the site, the convention, which one of the things we were trying to do when we present our events is create an immersive atmosphere. Really did well with that at the first Cobra Kai event. I mean, it really was great. So that differentiates from other conventions, because at a giant Comic-Con expo, you can't really have anything specific covering the whole venue, because our shows are just about one subject, which immediately takes us out of the realm of comparison to these big comic expo things, which, where we started. So it's all cool. It's not what we're really about right now. So other things that an older entrepreneur really can't keep up to is the whole social media area. It's like virtually impossible.
It's a monster.
You don't want me going on message boards and commenting. Why is that exactly?
Why you put me on the spot? Well, no, definitely comment on the message boards as much as you'd like.
You just told me earlier today not to do it.
I said it's always best not to engage. However, I did use the caveat that I had seen you several months ago address one of a big critic of yours or of the company on social media, and within a few messages, within a few comments, it turned into, "Thanks very much. I'm so sorry for what I said. I really appreciate it." So, hey, you pulled it off.
Well, no, it was just the person in question was so, his criticisms were not valid. Honestly, I mean, listen, when I go to see a show, I don't know anything that's going on behind the scenes. I only see the show. So, you got to be careful when you criticize a production, exactly what you're criticizing, because especially in the case of conventions, it's the celebrities that are really running the show. Yeah. So no, you can criticize the promoter all you want, but most of the time it's about what the demands are of the celebrities, which is fair, because they're paid to be there and it's a contract, and that's the way it goes.
I know exactly what you mean, because I spend a lot of time on the sports message boards, and then there are people that are like, "This guy should trade for this guy. He should just trade," and then they're wrong, because you really just want to say, "Bro, why would the other team make that trade?" and then I get into it and we're all, so it's basically the same thing. I'm sure you've experienced that before with the sports stuff.
Well, yeah. This comment today that I commented on the board, just about, not to be so specific, but
you're very specific.
it's about having an extra event at the Star Trek Vegas show that it's a live reading of War of the Worlds, and it happens after hours, and it's a separate admission. So the person on the message board is complaining that it's not. He might be being picky, but it's not. It's not Star Trek, basically. And I'm like, first of all, we just announced last year. If you look at the cast when we did this with Plan 9 from Outer Space, I think a quarter or a third of the cast was actually Star Trek. So,
and it went very well, which was why you were.
Well, yeah, it was a huge hit.
Yeah.
You know how it was great is because Mary McDonnell was coming back. She was nominated for an Academy Award. Who in their right mind would not want to be 15 feet away from an Academy Award nominee actually acting at a fan convention? We see them answering questions, but when do we actually get to see them perform? So, Terry Farrell's part of the show this year. I don't even know if she's been announced yet. When do we ever get to see Terry? And this is what we've tried to do with Supernatural shows. We try to get the talent to do stuff so that the fans get to see them perform. So the singing, the concerts are so great. Mm-hmm. I mean, like last year, some of that performing of that Broadway show.
Oh, yeah. And this year with the duets that we have coming up, it's going to be incredible.
It's pretty phenomenal. So that's what we're trying to do more of. But apparently whoever commented it didn't think it was a good idea.
You're going to remember that for 20 years.
Oh, yeah, I don't forget.
Scary.
Not a criticism. Actually, we want to hear all comments, good or bad. And we'll answer them all. That's why we try to do those audience feedback things.
Right. That's actually something that's very productive. Social media, you never know if the right people are going to see it. But at the convention, Gary, everybody at home, Gary will say, hey, give a feedback to the co-CEO, and people stand in line. They will ask you a question. They'll make a criticism. They'll make a suggestion. And Gary will sit there for however long it takes. Don't take that as like a dare, but however long it takes to answer the questions, and he answers them very honestly. So, big kudos to you, Gary, for doing that. Well, but thanks. Honestly, that's very helpful.
I appreciate that. Well, the reason is not, one of the good reasons is the whole idea for the Rat Pack came out of one of those sessions.
Really?
Yeah. Someone said, at the end of the convention on Sunday, everything kind of dies out with the autograph signing and just waiting online, and it's not really a festive way to leave. Why don't you guys do, a special performance just at the end? And I'm not sure if the Rat Pack had already been appearing, maybe on another night, but we moved it just for that reason. And now it's a tradition. And I think it's been at least 10 years we've been doing it. That all came from an idea from the audience. A lot of good ideas come from the audience. And, a lot of the photo op ideas, you've had your own line, which are great this year. But sometimes the fans come up with ones that we didn't think of. So it makes sense.
And you're always listening. I will say the Rat Pack, when I've been coming as a fan for 17 years before working here, the Rat Pack was the highlight of the show for me. It just really took the show home. Just beautiful.
And, Max is so talented with the writing. It's always so fun. Yeah, it's great that, again, we can see these guys on TV and watch all the reruns and follow their careers. But, when you get to see them perform in person, it's pretty special, I think. So that's what we have a lot of that in Vegas this year.
Yeah. So before we go, bringing it home back to keeping up with the ever-changing technology, what's your final advice on it? Because this has been going on throughout the history of humankind. I mean, we had singers saying, "What's up with this auto-tune?" Now you don't even have to you could get a goat that could put out a good song with auto-tune, or video killed the radio star, things like that. It's been going on for our entire lives. What's your suggestion in a world that is really kind of impossible to keep up with all of the changing technology. So what do you do?
Yeah, my opinion, and it's not always maybe valid for everyone, is to hire young.
Hmm.
But someone like Barry Diller, the guy who ran Paramount all those years and was like a genius, he left show business and started buying internet sites. And, he was already
Smart.
like in his 60s then. And so he was able to really understand all that stuff before most of the young people. And of course, he made $1 zillion, which is great. But for others, I just think maybe hiring younger people who are more accepting of new technology and they embrace it quicker because they're online 24 hours a day. Maybe that's the best way. At least for me, I mean, like our marketing team, they're great, but they're younger. I'm still based on what I learned at Wharton, 40 years ago. So it's not that valid anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So,
good advice.
I mean, we had the first computers when I was going to college. We had one of the first computers ever used outside of the government. And
they were gigantic, right? Were they huge?
Yeah, they had spinning wheels of tape, and really it took up a whole at the university, like a big room. And then you would be at your little table and type in something to go to the massive computer, and then like the thing would whir and like a little thing would spurt out either like yes or no. I guess it was one or two. It would take like 10 minutes to get one thing. Anyway. So
right.
Yeah, you gotta. That's for me. Thanks, Ryan.
Smart. All right, everybody, stick around. Thanks so much for watching this segment of the Creation Entertainment Podcast. We've got more for you and more next week. See you soon. Wow. General Hospital has been around even longer than Star Trek, if you can believe that. Well, speaking of Star Trek, we've got STLV, Trek to Las Vegas, coming up August 6th through 10th. We've got over 100 Star Trek and sci-fi actors. You do not want to miss this amazing convention. For information and tickets to this convention and all of our events, please go to creationent.com. That's creationent.com for tickets and information. So, hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Give us a nice review and rating. We really appreciate that. And we will see you next time on the Creation Entertainment Podcast.